Did you share your story openly so that they relate to you? How did that happen? That's my personal question. Asking for a friend.
The story naturally came out over a dinner we were sharing together. And what he said to me was, Russell, this is powerful, and I'm sorry that it happened to you, but you're using it for good.
Welcome to CXO Spotlight. I'm your host, Chirag Kanijo, founder of Flywheeler. And this show is powered by Flywheeler, where we bring you conversations with leaders who are reshaping technology and business. Folks, today we're diving into HealthTech industry, a $200 billion market that's transforming how we deliver and receive healthcare. Our guest is Russell Unrath, CEO of Med Cognition, who is using augmented reality to revolutionize medical training and literally save lives. Welcome, Russell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chirag. I'm excited to be here.
All right, let's get right into it. What problem does MedCognition solve, and how are you different?
Yeah, so it's a great opening question. There's one thing internally we constantly ask ourselves, which is simple. What does sick look like? It can vary from colorations in skin. It can be a very serious puncture wound or something that's beneath the surface that's unseen by the untrained eye. So this is exactly what we solve for in our industry. We target allied health professionals, and we want people to train with something better than an unrealistic, antiquated plastic doll. Those things provide little to no feedback. They're expensive. They're heavy. And it's not fit for purpose anymore in the age and time we're living in.
Wow. So we're talking about these mannequins or dummies that we see that EMS professionals train on. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So you got these single male or female. It's very heavy. It's Caucasian, or it's a person of color, or it's Asian, something like that. So our solution essentially to avoid the lack of flexibility was to create a very unique system using augmented reality to create patients that are, number one, realistic. They have realistic signs and symptoms. It's not just an adult male or adult female, but it's a neonatal infant. It's a baby. It's a school-age child. It's a pregnant female. A geriatric patient. It's a Caucasian. It's a person of color. It's an Asian American or an Asian in general. This is a global thing. And that's one of the things we really boldly set out to do back in 2016 was to impact the way people train. So they're seeing something that's far more realistic, far more responsive, and is training people to save more lives.
Wow. That is definitely one of the best use cases of technology that I have seen.
We think so.
Why you? Was there a personal calling for you to build something like this or do this thing?
Well, so yes, is the short answer, but obviously, we want to dive a little deeper. So I knew the question was coming, but it's still a challenging thing. 28 years ago, almost to the day, just a few weeks ago, my mother passed away. I was 13 years old. So, just a teenager navigating complex teenage emotions and challenges. Uh-huh. And now you compound that with grief, and sudden grief at that. She had been sick, but essentially by November of 1996, the ICU became her permanent home.
Oh my God.
And while you hold out for hope, but as a child, I think I was probably shielded from some information. So I didn't quite know what was happening and how it was happening. And I think had I been told, I probably wouldn't have been able to process that. So, early January of 1997, events occurred, and she had to go in for an emergency surgery. In the course of that 5 to 7 hour marathon, right towards the end, error was made. And in the time that we were told from one of the surgeon teams in the waiting room that we could come down and see her, to going down the elevator, something very tragic and very graphic happened. And unfortunately, she passed away at that time.
I'm sorry.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, looking back on that, there were all these little things, like we waited a long time for the elevator and it got delayed. But had we been down there moments sooner, we may have witnessed something even worse than what we did. So, I look backwards on that day, and something inside me on a very deep level knew that somewhere I had to get connected to better training, and something inside medicine that would prevent these kind of problems, or at least limit the exposure to these kind of problems. And that's what pulled me to Med Cognition when I joined the team in December of 2020.
Wow, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing such a personal anecdote. So how's the journey been? I think it's going through a traumatic event like that, and then having that feeling, and then getting out of college, and then, straight away hitting the market where you need to earn money and things like that. How did you find your way in this journey to entrepreneurship?
Sure. So I came up inside, sales, primarily tech and pharma, systems middleware. I had these really challenging times, obviously all throughout high school and college, like many people do, but, compound with the events that we just talked about, the grief. I had this shift in me where I wanted to be independent and on my own and never find myself in a position where I was going to be struggling financially. So I tried to navigate the tech and the farm world as best I could, but like anybody else, right? You've got ups and downs inside your career. And there was at one point I made two shifts, one right before the pandemic. And then I could see the writing on the wall with this firm that was struggling financially. Clients were sitting quickly. I decided to make a shift and I went back to a smaller firm out in California. I was working remotely that said, we've got these big investments. You're going to be here long term. This is a great place for you. And then within 90 days, they gave me a call. Hey, we're laying off 40% of the workforce. You're the last hire. This is not a performance thing, but I'm sorry, we got to let you go. So that was, kind of one day to the next. And I remember I was working in a Panera when that call came through. So now I'm thinking, got to go home. I've got to tell my wife I don't have a job. We've got to figure out what we're doing. It's October.
Yeah.
Christmas is coming up. We've got two kids. What is this going to look like? And the deeper question is the journey to entrepreneurship. So I tell my wife, and I don't know what to expect, right? But she's very supportive, very loving. And the first words out of her mouth were, let's go on a trip. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me, right? Like, I lost my income. We've only got your salary. She's a teacher in New Jersey. What are we supposed to do? We can't go spending money when no money's coming in. And we talked some more and she gave me some time to process. And I thought, you know what? Why not? We'll figure it out. Right.
Double down, right? Double down.
Exactly. Man, you might as well. So she booked us a trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania, right? Through the factory, do the Hershey chocolate thing with the kids. That was the best 4 days of my life to date in terms of disconnection, time with family, having fun. I turned my phone off. I didn't have a laptop to bring with me for it. And it was, we played in the pool. We toured the factory. We made chocolate. We did all this crazy stuff. And by the time I got back home and went back into hunt mode, within honestly a couple of days, I found Med Cognition. Within a few weeks, I was doing a phone interview. The next week I was out there in person for this 10-hour in-person marathon interview. And then a week later, I had a job offer. So small founder-led company that needed someone with sales and operation experience. But talking 5 years ago already, that is, and time's flying. So I hope it answered the question a little bit on the journey from career to taking a risk in the entrepreneurial world.
I actually got lost in the whole story. This was phenomenal storytelling.
It's
amazing. It's amazing how you mentioned two events. One, of course, way more traumatic with the family loss, right? The second one is losing a job in October sucks. It's the time when there's no hiring going on and things like that. To turn it around and land into a top role for what you're running this MedCognition company is an incredible story. So let's talk about the growth journey. Now you're at this phenomenal med tech company and building and saving lives, right? But every founder faces that crucial phase between initial traction and true scale, like getting the product market fit and things like that. So where are you exactly in this journey now? What's been like a surprising aspect that you didn't expect, but now you're seeing it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll kind of start with the last question, then we'll take a walk into the past here. So we're at a point where we're beginning to grow at scale now, 7-8 years later, but it wasn't like that. And the point that I joined the journey as a stakeholder, but my first official day was December 2020. It was a founder-led organization, a good group of individuals who had relied on grants and some connections to the military. So the original software was developed with something called TCCC. So for those of you who aren't, military averse, it's tactical combat casualty care. So the whole premise, the idea behind this is life-saving techniques on the battlefield, right? So it's not necessarily, it is a standard of care, but it isn't an EMS or a nursing textbook because things go wrong on the battlefield. So you have to be willing to pivot and make changes. So my mission was pretty clear. From one of the founders gave me clear direction. He said, Russell, find the holes, plug the holes, fix the holes. Well, that was a much taller order than I had expected. So again, we were initially marketing to military looking for large government contracts, chasing them down very long and winding and complicated roads. Realizing that in some of the demos I initially sat in, we kept on talking about, well, here's all the things Persim might do in the future on our roadmap. And here's what we really hope. And here's our wish. And here's our dreams, which are a phenomenal vision to have in a development stage. But now we needed to bring this product to market. So we did two things primarily. Number one, we completely discontinued talking about what Persim might do and only talked about the features and the benefits that were available to customers in the moment right now. So we reframed the narrative completely, right?
Love it.
We kept, Instead of going to a demo and saying, oh, wouldn't you love if the hologram patient could stand up and respond back? We'd say, hey, these are the positions we can get it into right now. Here's the animations. Here are the textures, the treatments, the signs, the symptoms. And we built this massive narrative around the features in the tech that actually existed. And then in that same breath, instead of targeting the military, we started targeting academia. So community colleges, higher education. And these individuals almost instantly were gravitated towards the tech, towards the realism, towards the portability, towards the fact that this is a dynamic piece of tech that can quickly be reset, quickly be changed. And it allows these people now to unlock the power of their imagination, or a crazy turn of events, right? Unlock the power of their rote memory recall for situations they've been in, rebuild patients they've seen, but now treat in a controlled and safe environment hundreds and thousands of times in a row. So it's an exciting thing.
Yeah, I think what's interesting for me is that there's so much to unpack in what you just said. And it relates to so many founders like myself. If I think about it, you had to even pivot your target ideal customer profile just to get product market fit, right? When you joined in. And then your messaging is changing. You're talking about benefits today and features today rather than future. And then what made you get up and say it's extremely hard as a founder to make pivots because you love your product, you get initial success and you believe, hey, I'm selling to the military, and I'm selling to quite a mouthful of a tactical unit and helping them with care, which is such a good reference to give. It is so hard to give up. How did you decide on doing that? What were the market signals that you looked for?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, we noticed one, the cycle time on those sales inside the contracts with military organizations. They were 2 years at best, and we weren't always awarded all of them. So we were running multiple operations at once, trying to go down these different SBIR pathways and pathways with Army Futures, in which we still do have contracts and contacts available inside these different divisions, but the timeline is very long. And when you're young and when you're trying to go to market, what you need is a customer who understands the product, who understands the value and the benefit, and then has capital at their disposal to make the purchase and then become hopefully a long-term customer. So, this expectation we had after making this decision to pivot was, let's go after the university hospital systems, right? We know they have budget. We know they have nurses and EMT affiliates and all these things. This is going to be, famous last word, it's going to be an easy sell. We got this. It was not an easy sell. It was layers upon layers and mountains of paperwork and vendor systems, and 6 months before we're even an approved vendor at some places. And that's just to be on the list to have the conversations with people. And we got into doing our trade shows, different events around the country. And honestly, whether you call it good timing, good luck, hard work, defined intervention, whatever it is, Sharad, we had an individual from a community and tech college approach us about the lack of EMT enrollment in their school. This is out in Tennessee. And what he said to me was, we really need something, one, that we can carry around, that we can make changes on the fly, that's going to engage younger students that are technologically savvy. And he saw the HoloLens and he saw some of the reels we had going on the monitor. And he said, can you tell me more about your product? And with that, within a few weeks, we went from showing him at this trade show to doing the training on site. They've been a renewal customer since 2021. That really opened up our eyes to the fact that, hey, look, we're focusing on the wrong thing. And we had to be humble enough to say, look, our idea was wrong. Here's where the market fit is. And just because we didn't figure it out in some epiphany or some like eureka moment, it came to us. And I think
it's even better. You're reading the market. It's even better. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about HealthTech Startup, HealthTech Small Growth Company. You've got to be willing to know you don't know everything and just open yourself up to new ideas. And fortunately, we did that. And that opened the doors wide open in 2021 to help us begin scale, gain customers. And then even now in end of 24, 25, now start actually gaining those university hospital systems like Robert Wood Johnson, like Vanderbilt in Tennessee, right? Some of those bigger names who take us months and months to even get into, but now they see the product market fit and they think, all right, we need this tech. So that's it's just some of the pieces. It's a lot deeper. It's a lot longer, but I don't want to go on too much here,
No, this is getting interesting. In fact, I want more problems because problems is what we founders and leaders at these companies are surrounded by. And one of that biggest problem is that you're in healthcare provider, payer kind of industry, which is the most risk averse and a regulated industry. How did you
Okay.
build credibility in this industry early in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly love this question. And you would think, or right, some might say, a prudent person, let's get as many customers as fast as possible. Let's just drive the revenue right in, and we'll worry about everything
Right.
else later.
Yeah.
Just let's grab the top line revenue. We worry about the bottom line later. And that we have experienced some rapid growth in 21 and 2022, which, I mean, an amazing team, dedicated individuals. But our core focus wasn't to sell, wasn't to get customers fast. It was twofold, truly educate and empower. No hard sales tactics, no closed-end conversations. It was ongoing, open-ended conversations. Our focus was about transparency, about what Persim does right now, what it doesn't do. And then if customers asked, we would share some insight into the pipeline, into the development ideas, but letting them know, hey, look, just because we're talking about it doesn't mean we're going to get it actually to market. But when you've got really good customers, right? We have customers who are actually saving lives every day, Shirag. So for me and my team, you think about it, everything that we do, every decision we make, it's going to impact somebody we'll never meet, we'll never see, some mother, some son, some father, grandfather, aunt, uncle, who is going to have their life saved or have some intervention that changes the course of their life. So we've got all these excellent benefits of Persim. And now what we have is we've got customers shouting it from the rooftops, right? And just not to name drop, but we've got a large them at this point, but like Felician University, Robert Wood Johnson in New Jersey, we've got a large section of community and tech colleges inside West Virginia, customers like Bridge Valley in Southwest Virginia. We've got great ambulance customers in Missouri, like LCAD. And then again, like I mentioned, Vanderbilt Hospital in Tennessee. So there's all these moments where instead of worrying about how quickly we can drive revenue, our top concern has been to educate and empower our customers or our prospective customers and build deep and meaningful relationships with them. And we found that while we're scaled a little slower than we wanted to, we have built long-lasting, solid, genuine relationships with people that when it comes time for updates, upgrades, things like that, it's a phone call, not a hard conversation.
So I'm going to dig deeper into that because this is the problem that anybody who wants to solve product market fit, anybody who wants to build for scale has to solve. It is, you said, build trust and build your community and first few customers. You didn't sell hard. But how do you do that? Is it events, thought leadership? Initially, it's just the founders. It is the founder-led branding that happens and you scale up. How did you go about doing that in building your first few customers and having them trust you? Did you go to the events? Did you share your story openly so that they relate to you? How did that happen?
So it was kind of a mix. Initially, I was hesitant to share my story with these individuals, thinking that, well, it's true and tragic. Maybe it's best to keep the personal aspect out of it. What I found is, again, not on purpose, but with great intention in a deep conversation with one of my customers, the story naturally came out over a dinner we were sharing together. And what he said to me was, Russell, this is powerful. And I'm sorry that it happened to you, but you're using it for good. So, started opening up more about that personally, but it goes back to what we did, what we talked about a few minutes ago. We only talked about what Persim is doing and the benefits it does have right now in the moment and how it's going to benefit users, right? To train in repeated safe environments, to understand what a really sick person looks like, or a person who doesn't appear to be sick, but is actually in the midst of a really serious health crisis looks like. And when we educated the customers, going to different trade shows around the country, we are firm believers still to this day in doing in-person demonstrations of our system, right? Because you've got wearable technology. We want to get it on your head. We want you to use it. We've actually got a couple of programs where we ship a demo system out to you to use for a week or two at a time without our intervention. So you can really play with it, understand it. We offer some support, obviously, inside that time frame. But in doing this, what we found was, number one, so look, at some point, every company's got to scale. And from a business perspective, you want to scale at a pretty decent pace. But if you scale too quickly, you can fall back into a serious valley. So we built some momentum to build the peak kind of on the growth chart. And then we've plateaued for 6 to 8 months, but with a lot of purpose and intentionality so that we can engage better with our customers. We can get feedback from the users, incorporate those changes, and then build the system back out. So one, release updates to the current customers at no cost. And then secondly, go into the market that we haven't tapped into yet, talking about how, we've discussed this with current customers, current EMS instructors, current nursing professionals, and here's the changes we've made. And this is how it's even better than 6, 10, 12, 15 months ago. And that's how we've been able to, peak and plateau over the years now.
Yeah, very insightful, very insightful. Kind of as a follow-up to that, many enterprise sales like you're doing into healthcare system, into financial services, which are enterprise sales. There's a common belief that you need a huge team to do sales and marketing, and you need a large budget to do that, especially at the growth stage. What's your take on that?
So, well, look, I've got a take, but I'm kind of curious because you're, in a position with Flywheeler. I'd love to hear, you're the interviewer, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, Shark. I want to turn the tables for a second. What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I think you put me at a spot, but my thought is that at the growth stage, nobody understands the value better than the founders or the CXOs or the CEOs, chief revenue officer who are in the company. You understand what your ideal customers' problem statements are, and you sleep and you go to work. So what happens is that you only have so many hours in the day. My thought process is that unless you are building a brand which speaks for you when you're sleeping, and you're amplifying your story that reaches your target audience, 95% of the people won't even know you when you are at the growth stage, right? You're only actively selling to 5%. So my thought process is to build a community, build a thought leadership presence, and build a channel which activates those 95% of the customers while you're busy closing the 5% of the customers. That's what I have seen, that founders oftentimes wait very long to hit the product market fit and then they tell their story. But I think if you really want to do organic marketing, then you have to share your story today, behind the scene, build in public, your losses, your wins. And that's what makes it more authentic and have your customers connect to you. And that's just my personal experience. But now that you put me in spot, what's your thought as well?
Yeah. So it's interesting. As you were answering the question, I'm thinking about kind of this deeper level question, but you answered it before I could ask it, which was about like visibility and your story. And then I'm feeling, this awkward pain of guilt from a business perspective, thinking, well, I should have shared the story earlier, right? It's exactly what you're saying. Kind of, I guess, things founders regularly and consistently get wrong is probably the transparency or the visibility in just sharing the steps along the journey, because we all want this, we're successful and we're doing well and everything is great, right? Everything is gold and sparkly. But the reality is there is a ton of struggle between every victory and every win and every dollar that comes to the bottom line that advances the product. So anyway, I appreciate you sharing that. But from me, right, you talk about, founder-led sales and things like that. And that was a big part of it for me. It was, well, unfortunately, when I joined, we had we had some redundancies, unfortunately, and you've got to come in and make some challenging decisions. But then if you have, just say a CXO level individual who is now leading the charge, setting an example of, this is the kind of outreach we need to do. I'm going to be at every show. I'm going to be at every customer demo. I'm going to be selling right alongside you. And this is not to my own horn, shrug, and I realize as I'm saying the answer, it kind of sounds that way, but it's about leading by example and being the first through the tape, being the first to blaze the trail, not walking behind somebody and giving criticism, but walking in front of them and saying, you know what, this didn't work for me. Let's try it this way with you. And I think that if more, founder-led organizations, more startup organizations did that, I think they would see more success in the first couple of years versus, the unfortunate consequence of relying on others is sometimes you just got to close the doors and say we gave it our best, and that's not what we're about. We're about doing our best, being our best, scaling, growing, and outworking everybody around us all the time.
Super, super. All right, let's get into our most interesting section, which is hot takes, rapid fire round, right? You gotta answer it with one sentence or one word, your preference, right? Ready? Yeah. All right. Brand building or short-term revenue gains?
Brand building, 100%.
Okay. And what's the one habit that gave you the biggest productivity gain? That's my personal question. Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Okay. I can't do this in one word or one sentence.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I will tell you, right? So to my right, there's a window. It's my office at home here. And once kids are off to school, I sit down at my desk to begin the day. Before I open my laptop, open my email, check my phone, any of that, I turn around, truly, and there's some woods behind my house, kind of a small ridge. Yeah. I will sit and I try to look beyond the ridge, which you can't see beyond the ridge. And I imagine all these different possibilities that might exist beyond the ridge, things I haven't seen, things I haven't envisioned, but it's out there for the taking for someone who's open to receive a new idea. It's this 5-minute timer. But what I also do after that first minute or two is I shift my thoughts to some more serious things about the decisions I'm going to make throughout the course of the day that will the decision I make, is this going to impact a mother spending more time with her son, or a father spending more time with his daughter? Parents who've lost children. How is what I'm doing for the next 8, 10, 15, 20 hours some days, truly, are the decisions I'm making going to make a difference in the life of a stranger I'll never meet? And if the answer is yes, and if I frame every decision I make that way, it becomes very easy to work 15, 20 hours at a clip sometimes, which, many folks at our stage are guilty of, because you come so engulfed and encompassed in the work. You keep thinking about, okay, how can I make this better? How can I improve this? What decision can I do differently? So it's a 5-minute timer. When the timer's done, I swivel the chair back around. I flip the laptop open, take a very deep breath some days, and just go about the day. That's,
Yeah.
So maybe
I was about to say, I was about to share meditation, but you one-upped me with such a nice story. So this is amazing.
All right, man.
Okay, moving on. Most overrated growth strategy for tech companies or founders that you've heard?
No offense to them, but hiring third-party marketing firms, like the big box guys. I did this twice. Like, you'd think I would have learned my lesson the first time, but I'm like, maybe it was a bad company, bad connection. So we hired 2 different big PR firms during growth stints, right? During that peak on the chart. And it just was money that we'll never see again, lack of engagement. I really felt like I took a chunk of the company's hard-earned money and set it on fire, which was very frustrating. I mean, I could go on, but I'll leave it at that. Third-party marketing firms at this stage, big waste of time and money.
And one best practice in enterprise sales that you completely disagree with?
There's a few, but if I had to narrow down to one, it would be hiring a massive team out of the gate. As soon as you've got some revenue, let's go spend it on salespeople and marketing people. You just need a small team of authentic, passionate people who are very committed to the vision and the mission, and then everything else falls in line.
Awesome. Okay, I'll ask the last question. What's one thing in marketing that growth stage founders get wrong? I mean, what if you could tell yourself 4 years back?
Okay. If I could tell myself something 4 years back. Yeah, so we and I, doing a lot of the promotions, we would talk about all the great things that Persim was doing, all the great things about MedCognition, our successes, our wins. Everything was inwardly focused and, not getting views, not getting clicks, getting some pretty kind of menacing comments on social media. When we shifted to talk about our customer successes and our customer wins and things that make much more sense to the people we're trying to engage, the transparency we had on social media with product changes, updates, even things like bugs, all of a sudden, we've got customers engaging with customers naturally online versus us trying to force engagement talking about ourselves. So in short, we talked about ourselves instead of talking about our customers. And that was a very hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, super important. I myself noticed that. So amazing. That's the right one. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Russell, for these incredible insights into building in regulated markets, healthcare, and scaling through authentic leadership. That's what I learned today. For our listeners who want to learn more, you can follow Russell's journey, MedCognition's journey. All the links are in the show notes below. Stay tuned for more conversations with leaders reshaping technology and business on CXO Spotlight, powered by Flywheeler. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
To catch more such interesting conversations, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music.